This time, I'd like to call the order the City of Muskego Landfill Standing Committee for June 5th, 2017 at 4:45 p.m. Would the secretary please read the roll?
Okay, Mark Slocum,
Here.
Alderman Mann,
Here.
Don Matika,
Here.
Senior, sorry. Roland Kiefer,
Here.
Michael Colling,
Here.
Pat Murray,
Here.
Greg Burmeister,
Here.
Harvey Schweitzer,
Here.
Rebecca Montano, and Joe Spear. Michael Hackney
Here.
and Brett Coogan.
Here. Statement of public notice?
This meeting was noticed in accordance with Wisconsin open meeting laws.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of the March 6, 2017 meeting. How do you wish to move? Is there a second?
Second.
Eileen beat you to it all. Corrections, addition, discussion? Upon hearing none, all those in favor of the minutes as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The minutes are accepted unanimously.
Is it too late?
Pardon me?
Is it too late? We had the minutes of the meeting that isn't even here yet accepted.
Gotcha. At this time, I'm going to ask if there's any objection to reopening the motion of approval of the minutes. Any objection? Upon hearing none, it was just pointed out to me that Mark Slocum made a motion to approve the minutes of November 7th, 2017. I don't think so. I think that's 2016.
Oh, yeah. Hey, missed that. Good catch.
Any others?
Move to approve as
Okay,
corrected.
move to approve as corrected. Is there a second? Eileen seconds.
I'll
Any
second.
further discussion?
Oh,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes are now accepted unanimously as corrected. Open forum. I don't see anyone here. Compliance officer report.
Since our last meeting, there hasn't been much change. In terms of things that impact odor, we had some trenching that was done, the trenching was filled. They redid the access roads, roadside ditch. Yes,
Trenching, can you give us a date?
most of the month of May.
Month of May.
Yeah, they excavated along the roadside ditch for the access road, cleaned it out, corrected a seep, and then filled it back in.
Based on the information that I've been seeing by email, May looked pretty good.
I don't send those reports anymore.
You don't go that way, or you just don't send the report?
I just don't do it anymore. Mike and I talked about it, emailed about it.
Okay.
But they've continued, I mean, the order hasn't gone away. It isn't as prevalent as it was in colder weather. Well, it's warming up a little bit, it's not as bad.
Okay. Joe?
They completed the construction of closure area 4, which is the south side of the landfill. There's downslope flume in place now, which is where a bad erosion area was in past summers, and an energy diverter. It's been seeded, it's been armored, it hasn't shown any erosion over the last 2 or 3 rainstorms. And that pretty much covers the changes since the last meeting. They've started construction a week ago, but with the rain, it isn't. They haven't gotten much accomplished other than a new basin constructed.
What do you mean by armored?
It's a generic term for erosion control. So anytime you add anything other than just simply seeding, it's considered armor. In this case, it's jute. Jute to hold the seed in place, but it's more than a tackifier layer. So when you put down, if you spray down seed, And sometimes they'll use hay along with some sort of glue, and it's just a tack fire. This is an actual placement of jute and straw down to hold the seat in place. And there's actual jute matting in the channelway of the ditch at the bottom to hold up under the flow. Oh, and it wasn't asked for by the committee, but the previous engineer, David Simpson, asked me to put together everything JSA has done for the city of Muskego. It's all public record, just in case there's anything missing from the server. So I delivered the hard drive today that has everything to date that JSA has done, including the audit last week.
To date?
To date. 1999, September of 99 until June 2nd, 2017. It's spacious.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How many terabyte?
It's not any terabytes because I took out all the stuff that that were provided to us by the landfill. That's several hundred gig easy, and I had it in different folders. I don't always put it in the Muskego folder, so it made it easier to separate. But I did make sure there's no duplicates and there's no direct files that would have already been in their records that just cause confusion. But it's all our production material.
Is your online record still there that we can go into?
You guys switched from us holding it to yourselves holding it.
Right.
So they probably have almost all of it. The things that might be missing are like some of the in-between documents that were emailed between David and I, or emailed between Mark and JSA in the past.
Gotcha.
But for the most part, all the audits are something that should be there. We did contracts with the city outside of the committee, but we also gave the reports to the committee when we did the expansion reviews and so on. But those, I'm not sure how they were stored. So they may be something they're lacking. They'll be now on this.
Okay, just to follow up on that, anything that was done when Stella was still with the city, a copy of everything that was generated, whether it was an email between Joe and I or the landfill, all of that went to Stella and all of that went on the city server.
Actually, I recovered some of my own archives from the emails that we sent to Stella.
Is that right?
The storage of the emails is a better storage than the archive materials I was using.
Wow.
Questions, comments?
Good.
Very good. Status of projects, clay extraction?
We have started our 6-acre cell. So we're starting to excavate roughly 180,000 cubic yards of clay. Currently, we're planning on doing one stockpile, which would be on the very top of the hill up here, about 45,000 cubic yard stockpile. That material will eventually be used for capping over here on the north end. Once we get that up to grade, which we currently aren't, so we got about a 30-foot fill up there. And then we're gonna do a staging area. I don't wanna call it a stockpile because it's not. It's a staging area just south of the compost area, which we plan on putting anywhere from 70 to 75,000 cubic yards
And
of
the
clay. And
staging area would last?
I'm thinking maybe a year based on the phone calls I get from contractors that are in need of clay.
70,000,
Yes,
1 year?
yes.
You label this a 6-acre expansion?
Yes,
Does it have another name?
7 South. It is
Okay.
the name of it. Yeah, 7 South A. Because the entire acreage of 7 South expansion is 9 acres. We're constructing 6 this year, and in the future, we'll do the other 3. So like Brett said, it's probably 7 South A and then 7 South B in the future time.
Well, how long is that 6 acres going to last?
If you'd have been on a tour, you'd have known.
Would you pull the knife out?
Raleigh. Zing.
Anywhere from 3 to 10 years, based on volume. Who knows?
Jeez, it's quite a spread.
Well, I don't know volume. Could go up, could go down.
Figure 3.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not to pick on Mike, but if you look at the volume over the last 10 years, you'll see a substantial change. They've been as low as 1,100 and as high as 45. And that's without soil, that's the MSW looking. So the prediction for 3 to 10 years is kind of what everybody's telling the DNR, because everybody wants the economy to come back enough that we're throwing away so much that they're seeing the 4,000 mark again.
It's not only the 6 acres, but then it's the big overlaid in this, all the way over, so that's quite an
That's
area.
another 5, 6 acres potentially, that
Yeah.
you're laying over.
Yeah,
What is,
So how quickly we get up?
what is the total size of 7 South A in terms of cubic yards?
so look at
Is it 5,000?
No.
Or 5 million?
Million?
No, I think it'd be 5 million.
It's gotta be up in the
Man,
millions.
it's hard to say because
I'd have to
you
go
would
look at this.
consider a layover of that,
Yeah,
so,
you're probably a little less than 5 million,
yeah,
because
right around 5 million, I
the
would
entire
say.
expansion was 9.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you got the south part, you got 7.5 coming
For what?
with the whole south, A and B. And the layover, that should be 7.5, right?
7.5 million. The whole southeast expansion was just under 9 million.
Okay.
So that includes 7 north, 7 south, and 8. So it's probably about right with that.
Right around 5 million.
Okay, and just for my own benefit, B will be about 2 million roughly?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
good guess.
Household hazardous waste?
Our favorite part of the meeting. Alright, pass those down. Alright, so while those are getting passed around, and that's the data, and I can email those to the city, so it can go on file. I just wanted to let you guys know that we did get internal approval to purchase the scanners and the computers to be used remotely on the site, which will help us identify some of the users of the system. We did identify 2 business users, and unfortunately, there's no enforcement authority that we had, but we did send them a letter. So we will, but we also think that the scanners will allow us to flag those users, and so it will help Delia stop and maybe look at what they're bringing and identify some of those business users to, again, reduce those extra costs that we're getting in. So I hope to have the equipment in June. I hope to then do the programming, our staff training, bring in Veolia, they'll do staff training, and then have it implemented in July. Unfortunately, I'm at the mercy of our IT department to finish the order and get the materials delivered. So I will adjust the timeline as I receive the merchandise. So stay tuned to that, but I look forward to that. Also, that is a huge time saver for our staff. It'll save about 80 to 100 hours a year of our staff time, because right now they go through every single handwritten slip. It will also save a lot of Veolia's time on site, so it might make the sites just operate a little bit more efficiently, which I will take it at any stand. So right now, as of March, we were looking good. As we rounded out April, we had jumped way up. So participation was up 10.5%, and so and this can be for our new user. The top is our real big overview summary. And the second part is our budget. And then table 3 and table 4 are high level cost data, and then the table 5 and 6 are the real detailed summaries of cost data. I always do year over. So the top, that was just a cumulative for everybody to see where we're at. So right now, again, like you can see, we're about 100 participants up, but our pounds are up 20% right now. So over 8,000 pounds more, and we just jumped up in April. So until then, we were riding pretty low, and we were under budget, we were under last year's costs. Our total costs are only 7% up over last year. So I still think that we're doing good for the fact that we're up 20% on pounds, but budget hasn't jumped crazy out of control yet. Just be prepared, because as we get into May and June, we have a lot of satellite collections, and so those are our really expensive periods of time with those satellite collections. The April costs, I wanted to know too, were 2 times higher than the previous year costs, and the pounds coming in April were 3 times higher than the previous year. So again, we're seeing these really historically record high deliveries of materials, and when we're not seeing the participation correlation directly relating to it, that's where we're questioning, what's going on in these households, and are they businesses? And so we'll keep an eye on that. And that's all I got. We have Veolia's been good to work with. They sent me an email when I questioned the tonnage and basically, or the pounds, and they basically said, we had a heavy month and people were bringing in a lot of materials per car. And so I can only assume it's a spring cleaning scenario, and we'll just keep our eye on it and keep you guys updated on things. In September, we would know and have a projection based on the program costs and the vendor, how we feel about the remainder of the year, and if any action would need to be taken. So I will, if there is anything to be considered at that next meeting, I will get it well in advance to make sure any actionable item would be put on the agenda appropriately, just so everybody knows. Now you guys should be proud, because that was the shortest, sweetest HHW report ever.
But what I find interesting is your tonnage was up by 3 and your cost was only up by 2, right?
The
For April.
For April, yeah. So the costs were 2 times higher, the pounds were 3 times higher. So, and we're seeing that the cost per participant and the cost per pound are lower than previous years, and so it's interesting to see the dynamics play out, that we have more pounds coming in and more participants, but the costs are, I think they're, the structure that we put in place with the contract is working to a point that we're able to maintain the costs and be a little bit more cost effective with the staffing, the extra charges for refuse, things like that. I did, one other note I'd like to make is that contract with Veolia actually does expire this year, so it is not my docket to start renegotiation this summer with Veolia, so obviously I'll keep the committee abreast of that situation as well, and see if we can rein in a little bit more on some of it's the labor charges that are I really want to rein in on the labor charges and the supply costs, because those are the only things that we can really control.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Question on fuel blending.
which one?
Fuels blending,
Mhm.
that was a very large increase. Is that type of waste that's coming in that's reading that?
Yeah. So even though we stopped taking some of those components because we knew that oil, for example, could be taken to other places for free, yeah, it's just what's coming in the door, so. And when you look at the 40%, it's interesting because it's really not that much, but because they're low numbers, it
Right.
seems like a lot.
Can't exaggerate the
It does.
percentages.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like the landfill cost. If you notice that down 86%, it's not really down 86%. They just haven't
$50.
reported any load.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our reporting requirement for them, they can't charge us for it if they're not gonna provide me a load report on that, so.
Any other questions, comments?
Did the landfill loads go out to bid?
For HHW,
Yeah.
we usually go under the state contract, so the state bids it out and then we piggyback under the state contract through a cooperative agreement. So all the pricing terms and conditions that they have to meet for the state follows through, and then we get to stipulate additional criteria on which they have to follow. So if you could beat the state contract, I'm all for it.
Doubt it.
Yeah, right.
Well, and across the street gets a dumpster at a discount because it's waste management property.
We fund it.
You funded, see?
Yeah.
Funded it. Funny, they still bill Rebecca for it.
Thank you.
Let me know if you would like some consideration
All
of
right,
that. I can give
I'll
you all
talk
the
to our sales
specifications.
staff.
I'll give you all the specifications.
Okay, that'd be great. Email it to me.
Absolutely, okay.
MMSD project?
It's going pretty much as it always does, pretty standard. We just had an issue with a storm rolling through last weekend that knocked out our gas analyzer, so we said to send that in for repair. It came back today, so should be back delivering today. Actually, we are delivering as of now again. So last week we were down, not delivering, we were flaring it all because the storm knocked out our analyzer unit. But got it repaired, so we're delivering again.
What does that do to MMSD when you fail to deliver?
They'd have to swap from their solar turbines, which they use to run landfill gas, over to their natural gas turbines, which is their old GE. So they just have to run a separate set of electrical equipment to generate their power.
What kind of lead time do they need for notification?
Usually if they are gonna be without gas for more than an hour, they like to make the switch. But usually we don't, as soon as we know something's gonna happen, we let them know. And if we're gonna have it up within that same day, they'll usually keep their solars running. But if it's gonna be longer than a day, they'll swap it over. But if they haven't had gas in an hour and we haven't told them, they'll ask us what's going on, so.
And there's not enough storage in the pipeline.
There, a couple hours.
Yeah.
Couple hours worth of storage in the pipeline. Their solar turbines can run off of natural gas too, but I think they are more expensive to run on natural gas than the old GE that they have. I don't exactly know the reason or anything behind that, but for some reason they like to switch back to their GE turbine when they do it, so.
Okay.
Do you have any plans in the immediate future for modifications, changes to the system?
We're looking at potentially doing a media swap, which would put us down for maybe 2 to 3 days of one of our treatment skids, which is just taking out the old media, putting new stuff in. Outside of that, we're not gonna do any actual modifications, nothing's planned. Outside of normal maintenance items.
Electronic recycling?
It's running as smooth as it always has.
Muskego still full of TVs.
Yeah.
They never stop.
And they're still laying on the side of the road in certain locations.
Are they?
Yep. People can't find a place, they dumped one, I don't know if you saw it, but they dumped one where you come out of the plan department, over by the garbage thing. Somebody dumped a TV behind that. They're everywhere.
No problems here with it.
Okay. You have just had the latest Muskego recycling at City Hall, or is that one coming up?
No, I have,
We just had it.
You just had it.
I do not have the report yet. I only have the appliance report, I don't have the electronics part of it from Legacy.
Okay.
So when I get that, I send it out to you guys every month.
Residential drop-off site?
No issues.
Oh, come on, that doesn't
No.
agree with the emails that I've been getting.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't
Julianne
seen.
sent- Yeah, apparently there's 2 times where some people came in and maybe gave Grace a hard time, but they left before anyone really had a chance to talk to them, so. Grace told Julianne about it, yeah. Grace told Julianne about it, and Julianne sent an email to Joe, but they were kinda in and out of here before either I was notified or around or anyone else was, so. Nothing we could really do about
I
it.
know one of those emails said that they didn't want that one person to come back.
The
So I thought
Glenn
it was
guy.
pretty, yeah. So I figured it was pretty serious.
Well, and as far as I know, none of them have come back, cause I tell Grace and them, if you recognize them before you let them dump, let me know, and I'll come talk to them, but
Okay.
I haven't heard anything. anything, so,
Dial 50.
yeah. We'll try to do that as a last resort.
Well, these people threaten her that they're gonna contact the city for this poor treatment.
Yeah.
Don't you have?
We
the
tell them
clerk-
to do it.
Don't you have the clerk contacting you?
Yeah,
Would you like the number?
that's, yeah, that's kind of what we tell them.
Yeah. So as far as you're concerned, it's okay?
Yeah.
This is news to me. I didn't know about the complaints.
Okay.
You guys can talk about it fast.
You want me to forward you the emails?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this is, I mean, great. I mean, what did they, people?
It's, from what I understand, from what Julianne told me, one was man and woman came in and they had stumps that were too large to put back there, like big, huge tree stumps, so
Oh, okay.
Grace told them to throw them in a dumpster because they can't go to the yard waste, and they got angry because they said they couldn't lift them to put them in a dumpster and got all upset with her, I
Make
guess.
them smaller.
Yeah.
The biggest complaint from what I've
And
seen
more than one less.
is the number of loads that you're allowed to bring in of garbage.
Yeah, seems to be a big one.
I think we straightened out the whole compost issue or yard waste issue where I just told them, bring as many loads as you want.
Yard waste.
As long as you're not a repeat offender of, week after week after week.
And you're not a commercial business. yeah.
Right. So yard waste, we don't have a load limit. Your typical garbage, yes, and it's the one per week. And that's the biggest issue that we run into, I think.
And everybody understands that's one pickup truck load
Right.
per week.
Right.
Level or heaped?
I think they let them get away with heap, to be honest. It's certainly not one tarp load, because our residents are terrible at tarping.
Yeah, you can
That's
see
a
it all-
concept they haven't grasped
You
yet.
can see it all in the ditches on the way here.
Yeah, yeah. So on May 5th, Julianne let me know that there was a gentleman who was just exceptionally rude to Grace, and he didn't want to pay for a second load. And then when he finally stopped yelling at her and drove off, he had a passenger, well, they switched driver and passenger seats, and came back and she rejected him again. And then on 5/19 is when they had the couple that couldn't, Ed Krieger's the name of the gentleman. They weren't able to unload their own truck. So I don't know if they could have unloaded even if they were allowed in that green
How did
space.
they get it into the truck?
Well, that's what I asked. That's what I would have asked him if I would have talked to him.
That reminds me of the time where someone put out a washer box, a box for a washer, filled it with apples, and got all upset that we couldn't collect it. He said, well, we'd be happy to send the truck, because I brought it out there all by myself. Yeah, you brought the box out and then you filled it with apples. We'd be happy to send the truck out and you can load it into the truck. I said, well, that's not my job.
Well testing, well water protection area, anything?
No, not since when Frank was here last.
Okay. Plan modification issues?
I didn't have a list for you, but I know there was one for sure that we had, and it's regarding the new set basin that we put in for the new cell, and it was just a modification as into the depth of it. So it's 2 feet lower than what was designed. So our engineer from Cornerstone had to get that plan mod to DNR, which they approved, and the reason for it being lower is because the original design of the next expansion did not have an interior ditch to it. So we designed a ditch to cover anything that comes off the slope, which will then be conveyed through piping and into the set basin. It was just an engineering, I don't want to say mistake, but oversight.
Modification.
But it added.
That was the only plan.
It adds to its overall retention volume. It's not wet pool, right?
It will be wet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the outfall will be, it'll probably, the set basin will maintain probably about 1.5 to 2 feet of water in it at all times.
Wow.
which
Land tracks.
makes it a little difficult to clean.
Yeah.
You can always pump it,
So it makes perfect sense.
which is what we do with the ones that we have now, so.
I haven't gotten
What was the thought
Yeah.
behind having it as a wet basin?
Have to get
it really quick.
Just based on how much deeper they had to go,
No.
that's it,
like
to make up for the ditch that wasn't designed.
Well, I'm also whispering with Brett, all the other basins have biofilters. So all the basins retain the water and slow down the speed and it drops out solids and sediments and then goes into a biofilter which does more polishing. This particular basin won't have that. So the extra wet pool gives it a longer retention period and cleaner discharge.
Cleaner compared to the others, but not as nice as one that went through a,
Cleaner than if it was just a dry retention pond.
right, okay.
Still well within, still well within the requirements. Or at least better be.
what is.
Property protection, sociological, primarily property protection,
Nothing on the list,
nobody knew?
nobody knew.
You guys did just demo one of your properties though, right?
Pardon me?
You just demoed one of your properties, didn't you?
Yeah, one on 8 Mile. We're gonna be demoing 4 of them, but nobody on the list has signed up recently.
Are you gonna be burning the ones?
No, we're just gonna demo.
Because of your new chef, right?
Okay, because I did get a couple of calls from people that were interested in the program, but they've obviously not followed through. I just told them the most important thing is contact the landfill first, get started through that procedure. Don't start doing things on your own.
Right.
Don't you think that most of these places that went up for sale though are actually, they're actually getting their asking price?
Holidays.
You know what I'm saying? Market's been pretty good, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, new business. Landfill tour started at 4 o'clock. Those that were in attendance at that time, comments? Worthwhile?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot going on, more than I thought was going on. There's a lot of action going on out there and dirt being moved and that was a real interesting tour this time.
You should have told Ronnie to be in person.
For those that have been on previous tours, what did this look like in terms of presentation? Harvey? You were on there last year.
I mean, it's clean, well run. I don't know what you're looking for. But nothing was outstanding that jumped at you like, well, what are they doing over there? Seemed organized.
Okay, so what I'm looking for is that the tour is worthwhile to do on an annual basis.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Quite a few changes since last year.
Okay. Now, also, members of the committee are quote-unquote welcome to tour the landfill at most any time, but you need to contact Mike first.
Right.
Right?
Right. Anytime.
As long as they're willing to buy them lunch.
Right. We'll talk about that later.
I don't know, that could be a pretty expensive tour.
That's kind of gnarly business, that's. Item number 2 under new business, address cleanup of the road in front of the landfill per compliance officer's request from last meeting. Mr. Compliance Officer.
We had a brief discussion over when street sweeping occurred and so on. And except for one particularly dusty day, I have not had any record conditions of poor road cleaning. And I have gotten to follow a sweeper around a couple times that wasn't Waste Management's. So But I think that goes back to the whole, what kind of contract do we have for this facility for street sweeping and the median lane that Harvey was complaining about. The median lane is definitely cleaned up more frequently. You know, the left and right turn, the left turn lane for both landfills seems to be ignored on a regular basis by whoever sweeps. And that appears to have been addressed.
Well, that has been addressed.
Correct.
So both of you are satisfied with what you're seeing now?
With whatever change was made, yeah, it's helping.
But you're satisfied with the results, and so it can be maintained at that level.
It'd be great, yeah.
Okay.
And I haven't had, I mean, certainly as improved, I haven't issued an action item.
Okay. Doable, Mike?
Doable.
Okay. Item number 3, landfill odor issues. Prior to going on the air, I was having some off-record comments with Harvey on that. And for those that remember or don't remember, Harvey was sending emails on a very regular basis to Mike, and he copied me in terms of odor observations, starting back in, I'll call it, early spring, late winter. And the email stopped May?
No, it's not early March.
Was it that when they stopped? Okay.
This was more winter when I did that.
Okay.
If my record keeping goes back to November is when Harvey started contacting me. And that's also when Champions Village had complaints.
Okay.
And the people at Champions Village, when I was putting together the year end, I remembered to contact the woman who had made the complaints, and she said it had been quite some time before she'd had an odor. But it sounds like Harvey was still making comments.
Any odors that I would find were as they come up 8 Mile Road and on 45. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was October-ish, but it had continued. But now that the weather has gotten better, a little warmer, I kind of think it's warmer earlier in the morning and longer throughout the day, so that it's not as obvious when I'm driving through here. But pretty much every morning there's some odor. They were talking about they're putting in some new gas lines, and hopefully that will pull more of that methane out and hopefully eliminate more of it.
Were there specific steps and actions that you took, Mike, starting last October to try to address the odor issue?
But the biggest one is when we were taking out the Hall Road, which we all discussed that, I think, at the last meeting. And now that that's been filled, we've really done nothing
Outside of the ordinary.
above and beyond what we typically do.
You did a very nice job restoring the cover on the south side, though. You guys backtracked that and added more and more frequently than I've seen you do in the past.
Just cleaning up the slopes.
Yeah,
That's more.
but that slope was badly eroded. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
also
more
where your
so
header seeps.
the rain.
Yeah, we
Rain
probably
rails.
paid more attention to the outboard slopes due to all the rain that we've gotten in the washout. So we're adding more and more clay to them, just to cover up the washout.
Joe, when did that woman complain? You said, from Champions Village, and do you have any idea?
She started in November.
On this end or on the far end?
She's in the middle.
Oh, okay.
I drove past her house, not to bother her, but just to see if I could smell an odor.
Uh-huh.
And so you just pull in, and the second right, she's on that street.
Oh, so she's pretty close to
Yeah, she's close to the land.
See, I'm 3 doors from Ryan Road on the other side.
Okay.
And I mentioned that this spring I had noticed more so than I recall. Now, unfortunately, I didn't write down the days, but
Yeah.
oftentimes it was in the morning. I get up to go and get the paper and I go, it kind of smells funny.
We had the misfortune of both landfills having open excavation activities at the same time. So they were doing new wells across the street when Emerald Park was taking out that road.
Okay.
And then if you look through the audits for the end of the year into this new year, we didn't get as much snow as we normally do. You know, we definitely had the cold temperatures, but we didn't have the snow. And every time the snow melted and we had rain, we had a lot of erosion on the south side. Very little on the west. The picture of the west side, their compost didn't even run away until this spring.
Okay.
So my guess is, and that's like I said, a guess, is that any gas odor we had was off that south slope. They also had some seep problems that they did correct, but there's still a gas pathway. And then they excavated the entire ditch line, which appeared to be a problem. Backfilled it with stone so that anything flowing under the cover, so the actual leachate, would be directed out into landfill. And then covered that with clay, so that anything that runs off the slope, the runoff would be directed to the pond.
Okay.
And that greatly reduced odors when I come out to the site.
Okay.
But I really haven't smelled gas odors. The last audit, there was a used diaper odor, for lack of a better term, a very organic odor, but it was obviously something that was tipped because the odor was prevalent when we drove out. When we drove back around, it wasn't there anymore.
Oh, okay.
So, but Champions Village, and then there was a gentleman whose address I still can't find. I have his address, I can't find the road. I think he must have been driving by. There's a road in Kenosha, so I guess he was coming from that.
Oh.
And those have been my complaints. Harvey, the lady in Champions Village, and this gentleman
Okay.
driving by.
All right.
And Rolly has occasionally said that it stinks when he drives to work as well.
Well, the biggest problem I got, and people say it's methane gas smell, but I think it's not the methane gas smell.
Well, no, it's the components. It's components within the landfill gas.
Yeah, but it's landfill gas.
Right.
It's not methane by no means. But it could be the garbage smell.
Well,
Just
I realize me saying
open up
this
your
is-
garbage can
Right,
after a week.
exactly.
Yeah.
That sickly sweet smell is garbage, and the kind of organic rot smell can cause people to gag is the landfill gas components.
Yeah.
It was really nice when they were taking the auto fluff because the auto fluff has an oily machine-like odor,
Yeah.
and that was trapped with their gas, was trapped with their garbage, so it was really easy to tell which site the odor was coming from.
Yeah.
But with you guys haven't had auto fluff, what, 2 years now?
No.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, I have to say, that was very nice. That cover material added something to make it easier to identify the experience.
But I think it's gotten better in the,
Yeah.
like Harvey says, since last winter and
Well, yeah.
spring, it got better. So.
But I go months with no offsite odor.
Yeah.
And it could be I'm just not able to be out here at the very start of the day. Now, I did a start of the day audit at the very end of the year, and I've done one so far at the beginning of this year, and there were no odors. But I'm not out here normally at 4:30.
Yeah, well, if you get the heavy air in the morning, you know, where the odors are clinging down the
Mhm.
ground and going like this rather than going up, you know, that's when you're gonna get them, you
Well,
know, so.
Technically, the best time to have an odor out at this site this time of year should be 7:30. You know, they button everything up at 4:30. What odors there are have risen up into the air. And if there's little to no wind, it just barely moves around. And when the temperature drops, you should have that inversion, and then it should drop down on some poor soul's house.
Yeah.
And depending on which way the wind was going, but like I said, I have not been getting complaints. And I have not been expecting them because at the last meeting, Mark said he'd be dealing with it. So I haven't worried about not receiving any.
Yeah. Well, I've always said, you know, landfill smell. I mean, they're,
Yeah, but they're supposed to do that only within their own boundary.
Well, you have to stop the wind then from leaving, huh?
it's just that you try to hold them down as much as, odor down as much as possible.
Yep.
You're never gonna get rid of all of it.
And-
It's impossible.
And not to pick on the site, they have paid for materials they can use to reduce the odors, but they don't use them. But, you know, without a string of complaints, I don't see the need to.
You're just masking it, you're not taking care of it.
Yeah.
I'm
We're here to
just
take care of
saying
it,
that there's,
not
okay,
mask.
there's other activities
You're
that can be
saying
done.
you take the aerosol and spray it out. We just
Yeah.
covered it up.
Fill it with prions before you do it, but definitely.
Yeah.
So does more rain cause that odor, like Harvey said was clings to the ground?
Well, so
Heavy air.
There's a
heavier-
lot of rain?
No, the heavier the moisture is, and so the higher moisture content of the air. The gas doesn't move, the gas, nothing moves as well in wet air.
Oh, okay.
You rain usually after a rain, we've lost the vapor in the air, or the moisture vapor in the air, because it gets caught in the rain and so on. So we have a tendency to have drier air. And of course, the sun beats down and it all reverses.
Alright.
The big issue the rain has is it makes the waste wet, and they produce more gas.
Okay.
And if it's not covered, and there's not enough vacuum, then they could have gas release.
Okay.
But what's your vacuum at?
65.
And that's inches of water, not inches of mercury.
So what you're saying is a high humidity day, you're gonna have,
That's when I would expect if there's gonna be odor around the landfill.
Okay.
yeah.
Or at the end of the day, if you go through a severe temperature change. You know,
Yeah.
if you drop 10 degrees,
Right.
whatever has
Right.
migrated up into the, not quite up our atmosphere, but higher than landfill, has the propensity to drop.
Okay.
Any day where it's exceptionally windy, our noses are very sensitive to this stuff, but there shouldn't be a high enough concentration for it to be smelled if the wind's dispersing it.
Okay.
When I smell it on these two roads, is when it's cooler.
Okay.
Like, if you're gonna smell it today, you probably won't smell it till about 10:30, or tomorrow morning, at 5:36. It's because the air is cold. The thermals are pulling it up. And if it's foggy, then it's really prevalent.
Okay.
But if it's just a nice day, it's not, or a rainy day, it's not
Yeah,
usually a big
okay.
deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so typical, if we were talking about modeling, just leave out what site it is and how they're operating. I would say if you're smelling an odor at 10:30 at night, it means the landfill is leaking somehow. There's either gas that's being released or it's not properly covered, because that's way too much time to occur between when material was released, when the working phase was open, as to opposed when it was covered.
Okay.
Not saying that's the case here. I'm just saying,
Yeah, okay.
in the typical, scenario, to me, that would make me think that that's more likely a release that's occurring at the time you smell it.
Okay.
Anything else under landfill odor? Under continuing business, nothing listed, other business, review payments. Whoop.
Back several meetings ago, maybe a year ago, Stella was here and she referenced a baby
Yes.
was in the site. And was there ever some sort of a plaque? Because we had kind of agreed that we're gonna do that. We were gonna recognize,
I thought we were waiting for more detail, because we didn't know for sure. It wasn't known that
They weren't,
that's where the
right.
baby was left. It was suspected. And at that time, we decided we were gonna wait until there was further investigation and learn if the baby actually was here, or if it was someplace else, or if it was.
Undetermined.
I mean, you could,
Yeah,
if
that's
you
right.
did that just by rumor, up in Germantown, there'd be 1,000 plaques, because they claim there's all kinds of bodies in that one.
And Jimmy Hoff is somewhere.
Yeah,
Keep them up there.
it's just
No,
we
he's on
didn't
the
know for
freeway,
sure.
Now-
off ramp.
I submitted an email to the committee after that meeting because I found it on my phone.
Okay,
I submitted an email to the committee, fairly certain I sent it to Stella, because if I share everything with the committee, it violates the open
Now,
meeting.
hold. When Stella was here, she was here as a citizen, not as.
Right.
Maybe that's where I made the mistake.
recording
So maybe that's the error. I sent it to Stella, and I know that's where I left it. So, I mean, I can pull it up and I can send it appropriately.
Isn't it Stella that brought it up?
Well,
Stella
but
came here to the meeting
Yeah, right,
and brought
right.
it up, and Joe brought it up on
Right.
his phone
Oh, okay.
and read off the information that was available on it.
I feel like you sent that to the committee though. You double check.
Okay, but I know I did the research, and I know it didn't take much time, because all I did was pull the stuff off my phone, put it on my machine. But there were like a dozen newspaper articles. It seems pretty certain that the baby was lost, and it is most likely here. But yeah, I can put all that information back together and send it to the committee.
Shouldn't we be positive it's here? What do you think?
That's not in my purview. Yeah, there's a good.
No, I'm just throwing it out there. Shouldn't we be positive that we know it's here? Or, I mean, I have no opinion either one way or the other. I'm just wondering
Never
what
heard
everybody
how
else
the
thinks.
case was finally adjudicated? You know, did the guy admit, or did he go, was he sentenced?
The mother was sentenced, but there was no habeas corpus.
What was,
The body was never found.
okay,
You know, there's a certain amount of effort that they will put into it. But after a point in time,
Oh, I
you're not gonna
understand.
dig up the whole landfill.
No, I
You
understand.
know, there's a practical limit.
How long would a baby carcass take to break down the landfill?
Oh, jeez.
I have no idea.
I guess the point is, was Stella notified of, and does she have resolved the issue? Cause I don't know what,
She came here as a resident,
and did we get back to her with,
suggesting that it would be nice, to use a different, you know, another term, to have a plaque that memorializes, you know, this baby being in the landfill. It's not a negative thing to the landfill, it's not a negative to anything.
Where would you put the plaque?
That is now the point where, and I think Mike wasn't here for that meeting.
I guess I wasn't either.
I only vaguely remember. Modification.
But
We picked a good meeting.
Brett, were you here, Brett, for
Yes,
that
I was
meeting?
here for that.
Okay, and if I remember right, unfortunately, I don't have those minutes here, but if I remember right, you were going to bring that issue up with Mike to
I
see,
think we talked about it a little bit, but. it wasn't-
okay, to
yeah, it was
see
way back then.
how, from a landfill, you wanted to address it.
I thought we were waiting to hear back as to what really happened. We weren't gonna address anything at that point in time.
That's where I thought we left
Yeah.
it too. We were waiting to see.
I don't,
Yeah.
Well, and I think we
I don't
also,
think we agreed, we didn't really agree to do anything
well,
no,
at that
there was,
point.
Brett, if you think back,
Yep,
it was left with you taking it to Mike and developing what would ultimately be a landfill policy for addressing that kind of an issue.
I don't.
Because it's going to
remember
come
at all.
up in the future.
Sure. Yeah, I don't remember talking about developing a policy for that though. I just remember Stella essentially bringing it up and then Joe looked it up on his phone and it's kinda, everyone just said, well, we'll look into it and kinda left it at that.
Okay, well, with that kind of response, there's no one here to look into it.
Well, I meant, yeah,
This would have to come from our corporate office.
yeah, I mean, we wouldn't just issue something like that.
They may have something out there, I don't know, I've never,
Go ahead.
okay, and I seem to remember that, yes, we did discuss that you were gonna check with the company to see what the company was doing with, you know, a whole collection, you know, a much larger number of sites to see how they've dealt with this, and then make a recommendation as to what we might do here.
Okay.
There must
I
be
don't
some,
remember- I don't remember
some
that one. All right.
company policy or
I would be surprised if there
custom
was.
that they have dealt with this in the past.
we'll look into it.
Yeah.
I don't know of anything, but
where would you put the plaque, people?
I mean, it's,
That's the whole part.
Where
of-
would you put it?
Yeah.
On the hill?
No,
Behind the building? Behind the gas building here?
no.
What do you
I don't
want?
really- I don't really
Would you put it
understand.
by the road?
yeah, I mean, I don't really understand why the landfill would have any real part in this whatsoever.
Yeah, I
In all
don't
honesty.
understand it at all.
There's nothing that the landfill would really do in this
It's-
circumstance
nobody's
outside of
gonna
help
see
local
it.
authorities.
Nobody's gonna know it's here. I mean, if you look at what we did for Skip, and Skip was extremely deserving of his plaque. Nobody sees that. Nobody takes care of that. Nobody worries about that. The bench is falling apart. The plaque is probably on the ground by now. I mean, there's
no,
nothing is here to maintain those kind of
Plaques.
things.
Bench is there. and
The bench is there?
Yeah. The
But
only
last
thing-
time I saw it was
The only thing
kinda-
I will do is I noticed that the tree
Tree's dying.
is dying,
Oh,
so
is it?
I'll replace that tree. Cause I
Okay.
thought Skip was a
Skip's
great guy.
tree. He was a great guy. He
Skip was a
very
great guy.
deserving, yeah. But I'm just saying, it's not like anybody's gonna know it's here except us. We knew that one was here, but people driving down the road aren't gonna know, nobody. And I think it would start a precedence that the landfill would go crazy with.
I think so too.
Cause then anybody could say, no, I know that that's where they wound up and I want a plaque for them too.
Well, then that's where corporate policy is to set that. And I'm sure Stella would be fine with that as a.
And I'm sure they have one, it's probably just never come up, it's meant
I don't
asking.
know.
I think it just goes to our PR person, they deal with it according to the per basis.
So you guys will follow up with the committee and then Mark can follow up
Sure.
with Stella?
Yep.
Okay.
Next.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, review payments made from committee funds. There should be a sheet, last page of your packet. Questions, comments, corrections? Confirm the next meeting date, September 11th, 2017. At 5 PM here at the landfill, the gas building. Communications and any other business as authorized or allowed by law. Upon hearing none, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Move. Who was the second?
Second.
Mike seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 5:42.
Thank you.